We got the order to get ready to go in the city. That morning, it was like Star Wars. 1st Platoon in tracks, they're engaging. You had fire agencies prosecuting targets in the city, Army Apache, Cobras. I remember looking up at the sky where you see tracers going in, tracers coming out. I'm listening to the radio. You got RPGs going over 1st Platoon's tracks. This went on all night. As I'm walking, it feels like somebody hits me in the elbow with a baseball bat. The gun flings from my hand. I look down and there's blood just squirting out of my arm. Another round hits by my foot. So I finally get to my platoon sergeant's vehicle. My heart's racing. I'm sitting there bleeding the fuck out. I started throwing up. Richie, he takes the tourniquet, puts it over the wound. We got back and it was a rough deployment. People started to commit suicide left and right. There was guys nose diving off the Hilton. There was a guy who got killed because he decided to jump out the car on the 5 and got hit by a fucking semi. Guys hanging themselves in the barracks. Married people hanging themselves at home on base. Name's Shawn Reed. I enlisted August 18th, 2003, and returned this year, 2026.
As a what, Rick?
A Master Guns. Grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, on a little street called Gibson. Almost like the Wild Wild West growing up. Dad was in the military, married to my mom. They separated when I was around like 2 months. Born on Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So kind of military genes was injected into me young. Relocated back to St. Louis when I was about 2 months. Grew up there. The great thing about my upbringing is I had a lot of family that was around me. Great grandmother had 13 kids. And all of us essentially located in St. Louis. My grandmother had 5 kids, including my mom. So within a 3-block radius between my father's mother, my mother's mother, and my great grandmother, there was in like a 1-block radius. So I know a lot of people say that like, oh, they have cousins. It's like, well, like I grew up with all of my cousins. So, which was great and also kind of an annoyance at times. But, dad and mom split, but my dad was extremely relevant in my life. He stayed like less than a 10-minute drive across what we call the bridge. Got into a lot of trouble growing up. I think I use it as more of an outlet. I knew my dad was structure, and I knew my mom, because she was working multiple jobs. Not that she didn't want to, but she couldn't be in 2 places at once. So during the time where I was out and about, I knew I can get away with murder with my mom. I would never do it in front of her, or my aunts, or my grandmother, or my uncle, out of respect. So I started getting in trouble as I was growing up in the neighborhood. Gangs were extremely relevant where I was coming from. Never got involved in any gangs. I was just guilty by association. Which, that's horrible in itself. You can't run around St. Louis saying like, I'm not a part of something, but you're always around them. Seen a lot of drugs, a lot of people getting killed growing up. I don't think it really affected me. I would say it hardened me, but I think my center of gravity was like my family. I had my family there, my cousins. So regardless of what bad things happen, like I can kind of just revert back to them. Those kind of were the days where you walk down the street and everyone knew your name, or everyone knew you, or who you were related to. So, which kind of the days that I miss. You walk down the street, you see one of the older people in the neighborhood. You go take out their trash, you talk about your mom or your grandmother, send them your regards. Or if I'm going home and my mom's not there yet, like I can go to my neighbor's house and she'll feed me and then I'll go home. Same thing as getting in trouble. I get in trouble, you know, I get an ass whooping from my mom's house all the way to my grandma's house by neighbors who knew my parents and everything else. So I would say it was a good upbringing. Summer times I spent a lot of time in my dad's house. I think as I got older, I started to venture away from going over my dad's house just because like there was a lot of structure there and he wasn't going for a lot of shit. I think there was motivation because like my mom didn't have the money or the finances for me to have or do other stuff other kids in two-parent homes did. Like I started selling drugs when I was like 11. And it was purely because like I wanted to buy new Jordans or new clothes. So I didn't have any, at the time, I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I was just, you know, I just sell weed. But then like eventually like it kind of escalated up to crack. And it was all because like, well, you know, if I could sell this, I'd get a new pair of clothes. So by the time I was 15, I bought a brand new car. And then my mom was like, where's this new car? And I was just like, it's my brother's. But I'm pretty sure she kind of knew, but she didn't really dig because of she was trying to keep a roof over our head. You know, my mom was great. But like, I think because my specific neighborhood was dominated by three families, the Jeffersons, my family, and I forgot the other one. But as far as like getting jumped in, like who's going to jump me in, the family, you know, I didn't have that issue. So I stayed to myself. With all the bad things that I did with selling drugs and whatnot, like I would make sure that I'm away from anyone. I wouldn't do it in front of family members. I wouldn't do it around people that had some type of link to my aunts, uncles, and grandmothers because I still wanted to maintain that level of respect for them. But yeah, I think it was out of the necessity of like, I wanted the things that my parents wasn't giving me. But as far as like getting jumped into gangs, I didn't have the issues. As far as like fighting other people from around St. Louis who knew where I was from, like that was relevant. You know, got jumped a few times, got into a lot of fights, but I think I was a calm kid with like, I know I had like a chip on my shoulder. And I think it was just because like, to me, I was living in two worlds. You know, my dad was remarried and he had this like, to me, he had this like little perfect family. And then my mom was a single mom working multiple jobs, trying to raise us. But I didn't have any vendetta with my dad, you know, especially like being older now and understanding the dynamic. I just think that like as a kid, like that's what I saw. And it started to kind of like have a chip on my shoulder and fuel stuff. But to go back to the original question, like, yeah, I never got jumped in or anything. It was just, I was around too much family for that to even happen. I was maybe 16, 17. I remember one summer, I had a gun on me. Actually, no, I didn't have a gun on me that day, but I walked around to the corner and, you know, it was the summertime and, you know, I got probably another kid who was there, probably like 12 or 13, that kind of like just wanted to be around the older guys. And I remember seeing this white car just coming out of nowhere, just slowly coming down the street. It's probably like 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. A car pulled up, dude hops out with a revolver and just, I can probably touch him. And that's like the distance between him and me and you. And this guy just starts shooting at everybody. And my instincts was to scoop up the younger kid who was standing next to me and like grab him and run around the corner. I could hear the gunshots and all the firing going on behind me, but like I was just trying to get out there and I was just like, man, if this was my younger brother, I would hope somebody would do the same thing. But those were like similar occurrences that happened growing up in St. Louis. You know, St. Louis is, I don't think people really know like how violent St. Louis was and still is. You know, we used to call it, growing up in St. Louis, summertimes they used to call it murder season just because of the amount of people that would get killed or get shot it was just ridiculous. So, which is one of the reasons why I did not ever want to own a convertible car, because I was just like, oh, go down the street, get robbed and get shot in the head, and it's in a convertible. So I was just like, I didn't want it. But yeah, there was a lot of people that was either dying, getting shot, and I looked at all the guys that I supposedly looked up to as I was growing up, and I didn't see any, like, there was no positivity coming out of it. I knew that, like, I didn't want to be in a gang, but I was just doing what I was doing to get clothes or get shoes. But, you know, at 16, 17, 18, I started kind of like looking at the big picture. I see all these kids in school with me, and I did good in school. I was never a fan of school. I knew I had to, like, I thought the ending was, you know, once I graduated high school. No one ever really talked to me about college. So I started asking questions around, like, the neighborhood. Like, what does so-and-so do? He's 29, 30 years old. He stays with his mom. I was just like, I don't want to do that. And I started looking at other guys who I looked up to, and I was just like, what do they do all day? They're just hanging out in the street. So it wasn't attractive to me, and it wasn't something that I wanted to do when I was growing up. So I knew my dad served in the military, and I never asked him about it. But what I did do was just like, okay, well, my dad's married. He has something going for himself, and I don't want to go to school. So maybe that's an option. I have a bad, I wouldn't say it's a bad habit, but once I get an idea in my head, it's full speed ahead. No one's going to tell me no. And I do it I will get advice from people without them knowing what I'm trying to do. And then once I make a decision that I'm going to do it, there's absolutely nothing that you can tell me to stop me from doing it. And that was kind of like my decision from the military, it's also a funny story. I decided to say, you know what, I'm gonna join the military. I knew I didn't watch the news, started seeing the news about what was going on overseas. And this is in like late 2002. I was just like, yeah, don't really care about what's going on overseas. Like, it's irrelevant to me, because I was in my small little bubble in St. Louis. But when I decided, I went to a recruiting office. I think it was on deep south side of St. Louis. And I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna just drive over there. I'm not gonna tell anybody. All right. I went over there, and this is on a Saturday, and I walked up to the recruiting office. I was like, I'm gonna join the Army. I know what those guys do. I don't know all these other branches. I have no clue what they are. Don't even know their names. And I get there, and of course, they're closed. It's Saturday. And I see some guy standing outside in blue. And at the time, he had blue trousers. I think he had his deltas on, and, you know, khaki shirt, and he's smoking a cigarette. Probably like the biggest biceps I've ever seen. And I'm like, who is this fucking guy? And he's like eyeballing me, and I'm like trying not to look at him, but now I have his attention. So he turns to me, starts walking towards me, and I'm like, fuck is this guy? And he gets over there. He has a buzz cut. He's tied it up, and he's like, hey man, can I help you? And I was just like, you know, I came over here to join the military. You know, I was gonna join the Army, but, you know, I guess they're closed. He's like, yeah, you know, they do that a lot. They don't like to work. And I was just like, who are you? He's like, you ever heard of the Marine Corps? I was like, I have not. He's like, well, you don't want to join those pussies. You can come join us. So I was just like, okay. So my intentions was like, I'm gonna join the military. So I'm like, fuck it, I'll walk over there. So I walked over there, and we sat down in a chair, and he asked me, like, what do you want to do? And I didn't miss a beat. And I was just like, I want to shoot guns and blow stuff up. And he was just like, you came to the right place, with a smile on his face. And we talked for a couple of hours. And like, when I left, I was sold into, like, I wanted to be a Marine because, you know, from what he told me, you know, they slay dragons and can swim 1,000,000 miles, and they like to shoot guns. So I was like, I'm in. I did not get to pick my job. I was sold completely on shooting guns, blowing stuff up, and this guy's uniform, which I was just like, man, I bet you he gets all the chicks with this uniform. So he sold me on, hey, open contract. You can come in as an open contract. You can pick whatever you want. And at the time, I was just like, fuck yeah, I get to go shoot guns, I get to blow stuff up, I get this damn uniform, I know I'm gonna get chicks, I get paid. I'm like, this is fucking great. Open contract, don't even know what that is, but fuck it, I'll do it. So, but yeah, I didn't get to pick my job. Luckily, I ended up with the job that I love. And over the years, it kind of molded me. But initially, no. He sold me on guns, blowing stuff up, the uniform, and that's it. And I was good. The job I ended up getting was infantry. So, which gave me exactly what I got exactly what I asked for, which is I got to shoot a lot of guns and I got to blow a lot of stuff up. So it was great up until, it's always been great. It's changed over the years, you know, less blowing stuff up and more mentoring, which I think it's helped me as a person, and hopefully it's helped other Marines. So. Goodness, what was it like going to boot camp? Boot camp absolutely sucked. First time flying, never flew before. Get on the plane, came to California. I was like, this place is fucking weird. A bunch of hippies walking around, guys with long hair, and I was just like, I'm so out of my comfort zone being from St. Louis, you know. And I get to San Diego, that's where I flew in, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, you know, I got my Timberland boots on, baggy jeans, and like, what I did do was I cut my hair off before I went that night. I was like, oh, you know, I gotta just cut my hair off. But yeah, it wasn't short enough. But I got there, and later on that night, I get these guys with these weird hats, campaign covers that come in there, and they are blasting all of us. And I'm like, why is everybody like stiffening up for these guys? And like, we get on the bus, our heads are down. We go to, at the time, MCRD. I didn't know. I thought they were, you know, taking us to some dark little cave to beat us to death or something. But we get to MCRD. Another guy gets on the bus and starts screaming at us to get off the bus. We run to the yellow footprints, and I'm like, what the fuck did I just sign up for? No one in my life has ever yelled at me like this. This is the only thing that was familiar was the structure from my dad. My dad has always, as a childhood, provided me with structure, whether I wanted it or not. And that was instantly familiar with everything that they was doing. So, God, boot camp sucked. I fucking hated every minute of it. The first 2 weeks was rough for me specifically, especially after, you know, Black Friday is definitely a thing. I was just not conforming. I did not like people getting in my face, yelling. You know, I watched Full Metal Jacket later on in the years, and I'm like, this shit is all true. It's just like, wow. But one thing I learned real quick is just numbers, the numbers game. Like, I was getting everyone in trouble because I was just like, fuck these guys, I'm not listening. And then I'm sitting on the line at night, and we're getting inspected for hygiene inspection, and I'm like nonchalant, like, fuck this place. Like, I would just keep my attitude. And I'm looking across the squad bay, and I got my tighty whities on, thinking I'm fucking tough. And I look at these 5 other guys who are just constantly getting smoked because of me. And they all give me that look like, we're gonna fuck you up if you don't start fucking getting on the program. So I was just like there in my tighty whities, weighing about 120 pounds. And I'm looking down the row, and I had like a platoon of 120, and they're all pissed. I'm like, well, I can fight, but I can't whoop everybody's ass. So I think that night I decided like I should probably get on the quickest way out is to just do what the fuck I'm told, move, sound off, and just get on the program. And like ever since then, like the attention went away from me, and I instantly figured out like all I have to do is do what I'm told, shut the fuck up, move fast, and like my time here will, you know, they can't stop time unless I get hurt. All the jokes came down like, you think you from the hood and this, that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm from the fucking hood. Fuck you. But then like Also in the back of my head, they're so good at fucking manipulating the situation, as in like, we don't have to touch you. But when the lights go off, you got another 120 people here and we're not here. They're going to touch you. And I was just like, I don't want to get touched, especially by 120 guys. Yeah, I'm thinking like, I can't beat all of them. So fuck it. I might as well join them. So one drill instructor, I can't remember his name. I know everyone say they remember their drill instructors, but I'm horrible with names. I remember their faces and I remember their isms. We had the green hat, who some Spanish dude, I couldn't understand him if fucking he wrote it down. He was just always sweaty, running around, acting fucking crazy. I was terrified of that guy. And then you had the senior drill instructor who was calm, kind of like controlling the storm. And I was like, this dude's the fucking maestro of chaos. I was just like, try to get on his good side. But then when we pissed him off, this guy was just like murder us too. So it was just, it's like, man, am I going through like Stockholm syndrome or something? And then the third guy, he was like the happy medium. He was just like, you want to make him proud, but then if you don't make him proud, then he reverts back to the half retarded one that just runs around, you know, trying to murder us. And then when we make him happy, he reverts back to the senior guy who's just calm, collected. So I was just like, this is fucking insane. So I met a lot of good guys who actually deploy with me in 3-1 Haban. That dude's fucking crazy, but he's a good dude. We went to boot camp together, we went to SOI together, and we ended up in 3-1 together. It was weird for me at first, but learning that like there's a bigger world outside of Gibson, St. Louis, Missouri, and then all over. That was my first experience with it all. So it was great. But then St. Louis is St. Louis, but again, like it's in Missouri. If you go a little bit outside the county, you got a bunch of hillbillies. If you come back in the city, then you got a bunch of people from the hood. But also in St. Louis, that's a lot of people don't know. If you go on the south side, there is a diverse culture of, you got Middle Easterns, you got Europeans. I met my first guy from Iraq in St. Louis before the war. Like there was a Iraqi restaurant that I used to love going over there and getting the bread from. I didn't know Iraq was a thing. I just knew it was great food. And it was a Middle Eastern restaurant. But when I got there, it was just the different, it wasn't more so the cultures that kind of gave me the warm and fuzzy or the excitement or took me back. It was the different personalities from all walks of life. So guy from California, guy from Texas, guy from Montana, guy from here, guy from there. I was just like, who are you guys? So it was great, but it was also weird. We had a couple weirdos. There's a one story where this black dude, I don't even know if he's still in, but he made me extremely uncomfortable. It was fucking weird. Every night during the hygiene inspection, this guy would be across from me, this black dude, and he would just sit there like staring at me. I don't know if he was scratching on his balls or he was just like, I don't know what was going on. But then before the hygiene inspection, he would come out and come like stand beside me and talk to me. He was just like, hey man, what's up? Like, it's crazy, huh? And I'm like, yeah, this is crazy, man. Like, why are you scratching your nuts while you sit next to me? He's like, yeah, man, like if you need anything, like let me know. I'm like, I don't even know your fucking name. But now I'm definitely gonna not tell you anything that I fucking need. But that was just weird. I was just like, that was the weird experience that I had. Like I never had to sit in front of a bunch of 120, 119 other guys half naked, and get my toes and nails checked, and everybody's out there in tighty whities. And this dude is just like giving me the eyeball. So I was just like, I avoided his ass for showers. I avoided him with everything because I'm like, man, this dude is going to catch me while I'm fucking sleeping and do something. But like that dude was just absolutely weird. I hear stories now about how boot camp, but like boot camp was, I think boot camp was different compared to now, what they can and can't do. Like the one arm distance things was definitely relevant. You know, us going to the squad bay, and like if we are, I wouldn't even say if it was one arm distance, we were in elbow distance. Like you got stiff armed, damn near got, heel kicked by one of the drill instructors. Like it was a wild, wild west. So boot camp was not loved, but also interesting. So it did its job. So my family did not show up to boot camp to see me. And I don't think it was because they didn't want to. It was just because at the time, like, I don't like being put on the spotlight as in like, hey, look at me or whatnot. So I think my dad would have loved it. I don't think my mother at the time could like financially do it. So, and then also like I had built up so much discontent for the drill instructors. Like I couldn't understand why people left on graduation day, they wanted a picture with the drill instructors. I wanted to stab every last one of them. Like, this guy was living hell for the last 3 months. Like, why in the fuck do I want to take a picture with him? So what I would do is just like, when I graduated, like I changed instantly and got on the bus and got out of Dodge. Like I was just like, I want to get far. Soon as the graduation was there, I grabbed my bag, went to go change, got on the bus, and I was just like, get me the hell out of here. One of the guys that I met in SOI, he ended up dying in Iraq, but this dude was, I forgot his fucking name. Mexican guy out of LA. He ended up getting killed in Iraq in 2004. But this guy was just absolutely fucking wild. And I know a lot of people probably still know his name. If I was to do some looking around, I could probably find his name. But every night, this guy would come by and be like, hey, I'll be back. I'm going to get some bitches. And he would leave the squad bay, have these girls pick him up on base, go to LA, come back fucking hammered, climb through the window in a squad bay, walk past me, slap me on the ass, was like, yeah, I got something for you. And I'm like, God damn, like this dude was just having a blast. But, and then there was another time where my dumb ass, I've never shaved before the Marine Corps. So I started to have a bunch of like problems with my face. Every black dude has the same issue. And I was just like, all right, I'm in the field. I'm gonna go get some lotion. But what happened is I mistake the lotion for shampoo. So I wake up in the morning, it's freezing, I shaved, and I was like, I'm gonna put some lotion on my face. So I put shampoo on my fucking face instead of lotion, and we're doing one of our attacks for an ITB. An instructor walks over to me and was just like, Private, are you good? I'm like, yes. Am I good? It's just like, it looks like somebody just had their way with you all over your fucking face. And I was just like, what are you talking about? And like, I looked at my buddy and he was just like, what the fuck is wrong with your face? And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with your face? And my entire face was just peeling with just shit. And I was just like, what the fuck is everybody talking about? So went to get a mirror, looked at my face, and it was, it looked bad. It was just, imagine having shampoo on your face the entire day. Your skin's already irritated and it's just peeling through the day. I looked at like some fucking monster out of a movie, and they was just like, yep, go over there and get the sauce so you can finish this attack. We don't give a shit. You're still going to do it. You're not dying. And I was just like, yeah. So I had some funny experiences in ITB, but like, yeah, those are the ones that I could probably remember that was hilarious. ITB Infantry Training Battalion, that School of Infantry West, is located on the East Coast at Camp-Pendleton, California. Once you get into training, that's where the open contract kind of like came into play. I had to go talk to a master. I don't know who he was, but he asked me like, hey, what job do you want? He was just like, you can go play with vehicles, you can go cook, or you can shoot guns. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why in the hell do I want to work on a truck? Like, that's not what I signed up for. And I was like, I damn sure don't want to cook any steaks. Like, I want to shoot guns. So he was just like, well, your ASVAB is low enough, so you could definitely go shoot guns with the rest of the dummies. And I was just like, perfect. Send me to ITB. But I ended up graduating ITB in February, and I got orders to 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines in Horno, down the road from School of Infantry West. They picked us up. It's probably about 200 of us. It was hot. California's always good weather, but that day it was just a little bit hot, a little more humid than normal. Horno, hell's little bowl of mountains. We get down there with a bus of 200 people, and then as we're pulling up, you see all these senior Marines that are just drooling at the chops. And I was just like, it's like, all right, hopefully this is good. We get off, they're not really yelling at us, they're just smiling at us. And I was just like, this is weird. So we get over there, we get our orders, first sergeants talk to us. I still don't know who the fuck he is. At the time, it was Wayne Hertz. He was our first sergeant. At the time, it was Staff Sergeant Van Dale, who ended up being my platoon sergeant for that first deployment. They had just got back, so they were rotating with personnel, and he was just standing in as a first sergeant. Terrified of that guy. Throughout the workup, still terrified of him. But, and at the time, because we got back, the personnel, they practically had no one. The staff sergeant was the first sergeant. Our platoon sergeant at the time was a corporal, and it was just like, imagine you putting lance corporals and corporals in charge of platoons. It was just fucking hell on earth. So we got there. As we're walking to the barracks, 3-story barracks towards the back of Horno, as we're walking past like all these senior Marines, like I'm like happy. I'm like, fuck yeah, I get to, go blow stuff up, shoot guns. Like I see like ones and twosy passing us by, like, welcome to Horno, bitches. And I'm like, okay, fuck you. But I don't know that guy. And like pass another guy, like, you motherfuckers are gonna die tonight. And I'm like, what in the fuck is going on with these people? And I get past, more people, and it was just like, yeah, fresh meat. And I finally get to the 3-story, 4-story barracks, and there's like guys on a like on the balcony, half naked, already drinking beer. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, is this the military? And they're hooting and hollering like, fuck yeah, fresh fucking blood. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna lock myself in a room, and I'm stay out of fucking sight of everyone. So it was nerve-wracking when I first got to Horno at 3-1. Didn't know a lot about the unit, but just from the time I got there were people telling me like fucking fresh meat, and then it looked like I'm walking into a gladiator stadium in front of the 3 and 4-story barracks with, people already half naked on the balcony. I mean, in boxers and with the trousers on, drinking and hooting and hollering. I was just like, man, it still had the same feeling from the time I got the MCRD to the time I got to the unit. Was like, what the fuck did I get myself into? So that was the first day at 3-1 in the fleet, and I was still like, holy shit, what did I get into? Made it to my room without incident, and I think it was because there was just so many of us. Because again, the invasion was over, but we were moving into a different phase of Iraq, and up until the time that I got there, like after the invasion, the insurgencies kind of started to pick up. So they were asking for more and more people to come over there. So as we got to the units, 200 people is a lot of people to process. So even if you do want to fuck with them, like there's 200 people. One of the stories that I do remember is doing a PFT in Horno in my alphas with my sea bag. I was just like, what the fuck is going on? One of the Sea Marines came out of his room, hammered, and was just like, fuck yeah, we're gonna celebrate the traditions of the Marine Corps. And I was just like, at the time, I was just like, I don't know what traditions he's talking about, but all right, cool. Aye, Lance Corporal. So me and a few guys from another company, I think I was just like in the range of whoever they could find. Got us all out, told us like, go get in your alphas for inspection, got in our alphas, and then go grab a sea bag, grabbed a sea bag, and then we got in formation on a little road, and then like a mile and a half later, like I'm at the PFT turnaround, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? They're throwing up, yelling at us to fucking, you know, keep up. If we was in our fucking Iraq, you know, you guys wouldn't fucking make it. I was like, fuck yeah, I wouldn't make it. Like I got a fucking sea bag in my hand, alphas. Like this isn't fucking World War I. I'm not fighting in fucking alphas and you know, during the banana wars or some shit. So we get back, and that was just, to me, that just set the tone with like how this shit was gonna be. Like I had no clue while I was getting thrashed. I just figured like, you know, they wanted to see how tough we are. You know, some of the new guys didn't last long. You know, the ones who screamed hazing, we almost like disassociated with them because we were like, you know, these are the guys that we're deploying with. Something that they're telling us is probably right. I haven't been there, so I should probably listen to them. And then now I have a guy who's like, you know, that they're hazing us, and you're like in conflict. Like, are they hazing us? Are they getting ready for something that we haven't done before? So we would just disassociate it with the guys who were like, I'm hazing or getting hazed, and then they would just magically disappear. I don't know where they went, but we didn't see them anymore. There wasn't a lot. But the time we got there, it was just one thing after another. Like on the weekends, we would tape the windows up at the top of the window, and then we would put something underneath the door, and we would lock the bathroom door. And like if you stayed in the barracks, it was like hide and go seek for the whole weekend because you didn't want any of the senior Marines to see you and like the bullshit start. So eventually we kind of like got it in our heads that we should probably leave base and go explore California for the good of all of us. So most people did that, but like I was still in the miss home mode. So I was trying to, like, every other weekend I was just flying back to St. Louis. But over time they got old, and kind of like I started to kind of explore California a little bit more. So my first deployment, the reason it was so significant was because of the things that happened. It's still relevant in my life. Those particular events that happened, they shake me in every possible way today. Back then during GWAT, you had, and I feel bad for the guys nowadays, because back then you had you knew where you were going. You knew you were going to get into some type of gunfight, and you knew that there is a possible chance, the probability of someone dying or getting hurt is way higher than what it is right now. Like, I knew that there is active conflict involved at the end of my training. So it refocused you. It made you committed to you mentally committed to something even more, because I know that if I don't do this right, I can probably die, or someone can come, or someone else could die. And the last thing you want on your conscience is like, man, somebody died because I wasn't able to do this, or I wasn't able to physically keep up, or I couldn't think on my feet to make the right decision. And again, I'm thinking like this, like, and I'm only 18. So, and I think that's why, like, I was a little bit more, that's why a lot of Marines are kind of like, when they first get in, they're they're more like yes sir, no sir, because they don't really know what to expect. Now, because GWAT is over, I think there's less of an urgency, and you have to like show them why it's more important. Like, hey, we're gonna do this training, we're gonna do this to be prepared for the unknown. Versus when I first came in, it's we're gonna do this training. Somebody is gonna get fucking shot. Somebody might not come back. Somebody might not come back the same. So the urgency was there, tenfold prior to me going. When we deployed mid-June 2004, it still didn't hit me that the urgency wasn't there. I was just kind of like, I felt I was kind of going through the motions. I knew I was going to Iraq. I think I was enjoying that I was going to be able to go home and whatnot. When we first landed in Kuwait, we flew into Kuwait. We first landed in Kuwait. I was taken back by how hot it was. It was just so fucking hot. I see as the plane landing, the thermometer's constantly going up. And then when I finally got off, it was just like somebody just smacked me with, about 50 degrees hotter as I got off the plane, and I was just sweating. I think that's when it hit me that like, man, like I'm one step closer to doing exactly what I asked for real time. So I think my mentality started to change. I started to really think about what I had gotten myself into and what I was potentially going to go through. But I don't think it really set in until I got boots on the ground in Iraq and start operating with my squad and my platoon. So my first really like, holy, like this is it. Like, you're doing your job was, it wasn't my first patrol. I would say it was the first week of my patrols. The first patrol was like, oh man, this place is hot, different people, different culture. You hear about roadside bombs, but you don't really like pay attention to it. We were in the middle of doing a left seat, right seat, but I think Bravo Company 1-5 out of Abu Ghraib prison. And we had this crazy lieutenant from 1-5. I thought this dude was batshit crazy. He went out with no ammo and just a shotgun. And I thought this dude was absolutely out of his mind. I was on the up gun of one of the vehicles, and our vehicles back then I don't even know how we got out the gate. It was old Humvees that had no armor, that before we went out, we slapped Teflon blankets over them. We tied them down with 550 cord. My vehicle had a massive hole in the side of it from a previous ambush, and the vehicle got struck by an RPG. So I'm sitting there on an open back Humvee, standing up. Everything's exposed from waist up. And for some reason in my head, I thought I was the most protected person ever. But like, looking back at it, that's just wild right now. We stopped, and at the time you could see an IED from a mile away. If it's some type of trash or some type of junk, a vehicle, or they were using farm animals. So at the time it was a cow that was in the road. So we stopped because Lieutenant was like, yep, that's an IED. I was like, how the fuck did this guy know? So we get out the vehicle, we post the vehicles up. I'm on the 240 on the up gun, and then like half the squad is they're walking up with this lieutenant. And I'm sitting right there talking, and all of a sudden we started like receiving fire. And it's funny now because you revert back to the training that you've been taught, boot camp, ITB, and then doing a workup with your unit. And my squad leader at the time, who was a fucking retard, his name was Sergeant Hazlitt. God, I fucking hated that dude. His order was to contact left and buddy rush. This the guy, the guy that I identified who was shooting at us had to be about 400 meters. This was in open terrain and we were on vehicles. So I got half the squad rushing three to 400 meters. And my vehicle is just rounds popping up everywhere. And I was like, this shit is out of a movie. And I see the rounds getting closer to my vehicle. And all of a sudden, like, I'm like, okay, I should probably start shooting. So I get on the 240 and I'm just laying waste to this guy's position. I don't know if I hit him, but the firing stopped. And I see the guy in black pajamas like run off and disappear. I don't know if I hit him. Don't know. We never did any BDA or battle damage assessment to kind of go over there and see if we can find any blood trails. But it did its job. Whether it suppressed him or killed him, like he stopped shooting at us. And then by the time my squad got back, they were just, and this is like in 140-degree heat. And you add 10 more degrees with all the body armor we have on and the ammo, the water, and they were just absolutely done. And I was just like, this is going to be a long 7 months. So that was the first time that I thought to myself, like, yep, this is everything I asked for. And like, luckily, like no one got hurt. We all came out unscathed, but that was my first gunfight in Iraq. And we got back and they were talking to all of us, how many rounds were fired, how many rounds you think were fired at us, the location and all this other stuff. And that was really the start of my official job as an infantryman. I got into my first gunfight. No one got hurt. I felt like I did my job. I suppressed the enemy who was firing at us, and all my boys came back to Abu Ghraib prison where we were and talked about it, and it was a good day. Got pizza that night, so yeah. One of the events where I got fucking lost. So we went out at night. My team leader at the time was Corporal James, good guy. Security, he came from security forces, didn't know a lot, got promoted really fast, but he was genuinely a good person. But again, like the other guys who were in my squad were vets. They just came back from the invasion somewhere in Afghanistan, so they had a little more salt on them and kind of knew what to do. So I was telling Charlie of the patrol. I had the light machine gun, a 249 squad automatic weapon, and I knew that every 5 feet, I turn around, make sure the guys, I got a connecting file between the guy in front of me, and I'm watching everyone's back. We would do a staggered column up the street. So I would walk a little bit, and then I would get in the shadow, and I would turn around, and then I would cover the squad as they walk, covering up the rear. Well, my team leader, we took a pause at an intersection, and my team leader was like, hey, stay right here, watch our backs, I'll come back and get you. I was just like, all right, cool. There's another guy across the street. I can see him, but what we did back then is we would, I'm pretty sure they still do it now, is we would get into the shadows. So I got into the shadow, he got into the shadow, and my dumbass, 18-year-old me, decided to like, well, I can see better if I just take my 7 Bravos off. Those things absolutely sucked. So I took them off because there was enough lighting in the street, but not enough. There was enough shadows so I can disappear. So the 7 Bravos, if you ever watched Black Hawk Down, those night vision goggles that, the Army soldiers and the Delta Force guys are using at the time back then were probably state of the art, but in 2004, they were nothing but trash. I could not see anything in them. But I'd rather look through those than not look through anything. So those what I had to use, and then the battery always ran out because of who knows what. But I had those on, I was covering a 6, and I was just like, man, we've been here for like 30 minutes. So like I turn around and like the entire squad is gone. And I'm 18. My heart's pumping. I know I'm about 3 to 4 miles away from the prison. And surrounding the prison, there was a reservist unit that had the towers. And those guys were on the towers with like 50 cows and other machine guns. And I was just like, all these scenarios just went through my head. I'm like, okay, I'm not getting my fucking head chopped off. And there is absolutely no way I'm getting captured. And I had about 1,200 rounds on me. And that is, I had 1,200 rounds. I had a Claymore, which now thinking back at it, I don't know what the hell my squad leader thought, but I had 1,200 rounds of 5.56 on me. I had a Claymore on me. I had grenades on me. I was just like, it is going to be World War III in this motherfucker before I get caught. So I knew general direction of where the prison was. I didn't have a strobe on me, which is something to signal the towers so they didn't fucking shoot me as I was coming. But I was just I wasn't pissed at my team leader. I was just like, I got to make it back to the prison without getting fucking caught, and I'm by myself. So I was just like, okay, going through my head, and this is what I tell a lot of guys now. I'm like, the little things turn into big things. And that little thing was listening to the squad leader on patrol, if the Lost Marine plan. I was just like, man, I hope this shit fucking works. Stay in place and then follow the route. My squad leader at the time, the squad leader at the time, he made us look at the route, regardless what rank you were, look at the route, and made us talk, and made the junior Marines talk about the route, what we were doing, so we understood it. And not just look at the route, but the names of the streets. What do you do to link back up? Everything. I thought it was absolutely fucking annoying, but I was just like, luckily I did what I was told and I paid attention. So I was like, okay, if he doesn't come back in 30 minutes, like, I need to start getting the fuck out of here. So I waited 30 minutes and nothing. And my heart is just fucking pounding. And I'm like, all right. I was like, I'm gonna have to fucking do this on my own. So before I moved, I looked down the street. There was a marketplace. There's probably about 30 to 40 military age males. We used to call them mams in the street at night. And at the time I'm 18, I'm thinking everyone's a fucking bad guy. So I'm like, these guys easily overpower me and like drag me into a house and chop my fucking head off. So I'm like, all right. I'm like, there's the market to the left, 4 miles, I can get back to the prison. I just got to bob and weave through the streets. I was like, if I run into somebody with a gun, they're getting laced up, and that's going to be my plan of action all the way until I get back. And then, that was my first problem. My next problem was going to be like, once I get to the prison, how not to get shot by the Marines that love to shoot people on the towers. So I get down the first block, and I'm at the marketplace, and I'm at a intersection, and I'm like, fuck, there's a lot of light. I need to like run around this corner and find the next shadow. So I get there, I'm aiming, I'm looking, and I'm by myself. And then as soon as I turn the corner, I run into my team leader, Corporal James. And I was just like, I was so fucking pissed at him. And I was just like, he's like, where you been? I was like, I've been in the same fucking spot that you left me. And it was just him. So he was like, let's go, because fucking the squad's already like, a ways away. We ran for like 2 or 3 blocks by ourselves through a town called Nasser Wassalam. I think that's how to pronounce it, right outside the prison. We ran for 3 blocks by ourselves, and we caught back up with the squad. And no one, I don't think I've told anyone, if not a lot of people, about this story, because he never told anyone. And I think he never told anyone because he knew he would have gotten fucking trouble. And I didn't say shit because I was, PFC that was in charge of the SAW for the team. But we got back, he didn't speak about it. I didn't speak about it because I didn't want to get in trouble. And then I'm like, man, the whole time I'm thinking in my head, like, that could have got bad. And I remember seeing There's a guy who got his head cut off in Iraq. Everyone saw it at the time. It was the only thing that's going through my head. I was just like, I am going to mow down anyone that tries to shoot at me, put their hands on me as I'm trying to get back. I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm dying in Iraq. I have never been so hyper. I was nervous, but I've never been so hyper focused in my life. I was just like, I am getting back to the prison, and there's absolutely nothing that will get in my fucking way from getting back. Another scenario where, oh my goodness, I'm surprised no one ever talked about this. So we called it Operation Bandito. So we called it Operation Bandito because at the time, our company commander, Captain Echeverria, we used to call him Sketchy Etchy because he used to have I think he had like a stuttering problem. Good guy. I didn't have a lot of interaction with him, but he decided to get all the Mexican guys in our company. If you were brown skinned and your hair was kind of flowy, boom, you were in the platoon and you were doing Operation Bandito. So these guys will go get cars out in town, bring them back on base. And then at nighttime, they would go out, plain clothes with modified M4s and pistols. And they would go out into the town. I'm talking about sometimes in 2s and 3s. And I think like maybe one radio. And it was just insane. And this went on for probably like a month and a half, probably longer than that. And from what other people tell me, we got intelligence. We get raids based off some of the information they brought back to us. Was the good intentions were there? Yes. The thought process, absolutely fucking not. You know, looking back at it, the things that could have went wrong and did go wrong because of that, you know, it's pretty eye-opening, like something worse didn't come out of that. So this went on for a while, and I should have knew something was up because every time that someone from higher from the battalion would come down to see us, everyone would they would hide the cars and they would hide the civilian garb, and then like everyone would go back to being normal. So one time, they decided to integrate the Banditos into a regular patrol, and they did not tell, I think it was engineers or somebody else that was integrated with us in a patrol. So at the time back then, it was like, hey, stay 50 feet or 100 feet or however many feet away from the convoy for the civilians. The Banditos were in civilian cars, dressed as civilians. Someone thought it was a great idea for them to integrate in the patrol and not brief everyone. So they were swerving in and outside of the convoy. We knew about them, but the attachments didn't know about them. So there was a corporal named Abuday. Cool guy. I think he was I forgot which platoon he was. He was funny as hell. But he was the driver, and he was swerving as he was told throughout the convoy. Why? Don't know. I thought it was a dumbass idea. This is in the afternoon. And you know and me know, if a vehicle is too close to a convoy in Iraq in 04, they're getting laced up with some 240 or 50 cal. Well, the guys, because Operation Bandito was supposed to not be a thing, they didn't brief the other guys that was in our convoy who wasn't part of our company. And I think they were engineers. I don't know. But as they're swerving, the gunner on that vehicle see this civilian vehicle swerving. That's all it took. And then he just started opening up with the 240 on Corporal Abuday when he was driving. And I was just like, holy shit. He got grazed in the leg. Luckily, thank God they didn't kill him. But like, and at the time, like Phantom Fury was, we knew from the time we got to Iraq that we heard about Fallujah. We knew they had, what was it called? We knew Fallujah 1 had already happened and they stopped. And we thought, well, 2-1 and the other infantry battalions that already went through Fallujah probably already just they chewed up all the bad guys. There was nothing left. And we kept hearing about, we're going to go down there, we're going to go down there. So we just kind of like, whatever. And at the time, like our CO and our first sergeant, Wayne Hurts, that's all they talked about. I was just like, fuck yeah, you know, we get to go get after it. So when this happened, the day it happened that Abu Day got shot in the leg, the CO got back, brought the company in, and I'm thinking to myself, like, this dude's an idiot. Like, man, somebody, like, he could have got killed. And then as he's talking, he's just like, hey, Marines, I just want to tell you what happened, blah, 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 blah. You know, I'm sitting there, you know, PFC me, just like, yep, good thing you didn't get killed. And I'm looking in the background, and I see the colonel pull up, retired now, Willie Buell. That dude's a fucking legend. Love him. And Captain Heatherman, he's from H&S Company. They pull up. I'm looking in the background. I'm like, oh, this should be interesting. And then he's like, you know, let's go, guys. Like, you know, don't worry about today. Abu Day's fine, blah, 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 blah. So imagine a Marine who's in civilian attire, goes to the battalion aid station in civilian attire, a modified M4 and a pistol. And there's so many questions that are like, what is going on? So CO's sitting right there. The company commander is like telling us, like, you know, rah, 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 and about what happened. And I look in the back and I see the convoy with the battalion commander pull up, and I see this tall, like Captain American looking captain hop out. And he gets out, and he gets out, and then he dismisses us, and then they all go into, I see the CO, the colonel, and like a few other people go into his room. And then 5 minutes later, like I see like Captain Esrael like throwing his bags out, like he's pissed. And I'm like, what the fuck happened? And then he gets in the truck and he goes away. And then the new captain, Captain Heatherman, he comes out of nowhere. He's like, hey guys, I'm your new CO, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh man. Like that probably was not the results that I thought what was going to happen, but he ended up getting relieved. Rightfully so. I think what he was doing at the time was like, he's rolling the dice, and luckily like the dice got rolled that day. Abu Day got hurt, but he didn't get killed. So Phantom Fury was an operation that was talked about. At the time, I didn't know the name of the operation. I just kept hearing, we're going to Fallujah, we're going to Fallujah. I was just like, cool. You know, the name Way City kept popping up, and I was just like, cool. You know, Way City, we're fighting in an urban area, but you really don't understand the complexity of it until you actually start training for it. One of the things that I noticed is we would go do urban training right outside the battalion fob. And it was, you know, small complexes, small little buildings. But one thing I noticed, that no matter where you go, like I started putting myself in the enemy shoes. No matter where you go within an urban area, terrain, there's always a danger area, like a window, a small cut in the wall, around a corner. There's just a complex problem that you have that you can never get rid of. You can always reduce, but do you really reduce it? You may be getting shot down one street and think you have the enemy suppressed, but then, you know, there's another team or machine gun that's on a, you know, 5th-story building that's adjacent to you that you don't even know about. And now you could be taking fire from there. And when you think you have the situation fixed, and you have fire superiority, now you just lost 5 or 6 guys out of your 13-man squad. So now the situation just becomes dire. And that's what a lot of situations were comprised of in Fallujah that we ended up learning real fast. But at the time, like, I didn't know that we were training for that level of violence. We started training, we started hearing about it early through the deployment. As we got close to November, we started to realize that we started moving units and doing training that was specifically tailored for urban warfare. I would say in the mid-October, We relocated my company, which was in Abu Ghraib prison, down in the vicinity of the Battalion 5. Everyone started to consolidate. I knew it was big because I've never in my life seen that amount of armor and military personnel in one area that we were building up right outside the city. And then the briefs started to happen. We started to get briefed on what we were doing and what we were going to do. And at the time, like, I thought that it's like, man, we're going to be the reserve of the reserve of the reserve going in. I'm like, we're never going to see anything. So, my platoon were in vehicles. I ended up being on the Mark 19 when we were first going to come in the city. So I was just like, great. I'd never touched the Mark 19 a day in my life up until that point. So what happened was one of the machine gunners, I forgot his name. He was in Praxis squad. He gave me a hip pocket lesson on how to clean it, how to take it apart, how to put it together, how to fix the misfires, and that's all I got. And I became intricate with working that weapon system because I knew that there was going to be no one with me who was a machine gunner who was going to help me fix it. So I had to figure it out. So we trained for a couple weeks before going in, and then I think around between the 5th and the 7th of November 2004, we finally moved in the vicinity of Fallujah. Once we got there, we set in and we started digging in. I remember it started raining and I was just like, this sucks. So we had the D9s that was coming over to help us dig trenches and slit trenches and whatnot and holes, so we can get cover. And after that, once we got set in, it was just a show. You had the Navy SEAL snipers who were engaging targets from outside the city. You had the Delta guys who I thought was either already in the city or they were outside controlling air. So, and there lies the complexity of the amount of attachments that we had. Delta company, U.S. Army Delta was attached to, was supporting a battalion. We had a SEAL team that was attached to Kilo Company, I think, and then Force Recon was attached to India Company, I think. And out of all those guys, and I'm not just saying this because, I'm a Marine, I thought the Force guys were absolutely fucking savage in that city. I seen those guys do some crazy things, and I thought, like, man, these guys are like superhuman. The SEALs did a great job. The Delta Force guys, in conjunction with our battalion sniper team, laid the groundwork and built up the intelligence. But when the Force guys was attached to our battalion, those guys went to work. Like, those guys didn't stay back or try to disassociate themselves. They wanted to get in the fight. They wanted to be integrated within their platoons. They wanted to be an asset, and they were every bit of a fucking asset throughout that entire fight. Those guys were just getting fucking after it. The night that we decided, the night of the 8th, we pretty sure it was the night of the 8th. We got the order to, like, get ready to go in the city. And that night, that morning, it was like Star Wars. You had 1st Platoon in tracks, they're engaging. You had fire agencies prosecuting targets in the city. You had Army Apaches, you had Cobras, you had every possible air asset just going to town, prosecuting targets in the city. And I didn't even have MVGs on, but I remember looking up on the Humvee at the sky, and it was just something out of a Star Wars movie. You see tracers going in, tracers coming out. I'm listening to the radio. You got RPGs going over 1st Platoon's tracks. They're engaging. This went on all night. It was just constant firing going back and forth. Once we got the word, the engineers were told to go and breach the railroad tracks. Pretty sure we all heard the story of the Medal of Honor run. So they go and set the Miglik on the tracks. It didn't go off. And I'm thinking like, man, I do not want to be the guy. So if you think about it, all the firing that's going on with the Army units and the Marine units into the city, all the firing that's coming back towards us, and I'm talking about rockets, RPGs, machine guns, heavy machine guns, you name it, coming back outside of the city towards us. And then you got these two guys that are running on foot to go back towards a Miglik that didn't blow, and they have to fix it. And I'm thinking to myself, like, holy shit. Like, I think there's a few critical moments in my first deployment where I thought like, oh, okay, I'm getting what I'm asked for. But that night I was just like, this is unreal to see the tracers coming out the city, to hear on the radio, people are just, getting into these gunfights, and you have an entire regiment essentially online, regiment plus online, engaging and prosecuting targets while these, engineers are trying to fix this Miglik. It finally goes off, and then just a sea of armor starts to ride through, and they blew the tracks at night, but it wasn't until the morning time that all the armor got through the breach, lined up on the city so we can start pushing. I remember a Cobra over my vehicle, just engaging targets. And I thought I thought we were getting engaged. My vehicle was getting engaged specifically because I kept hearing like clinks on the vehicle. And then that morning when when the sun came out, I see all these like shell casings from this fucking Cobra that was like all around my vehicle. And I was just like, this shit's insane. We get into the city, and I'm pretty sure the order of movement for 3-1 was India, Kilo, Lima. And that's what I mean by like, fuck, we're the reserve of the reserve of the reserve. We get in there, and by the time we got into the city, we see the destruction, but it was eerie. And I think the best way I can describe it was like, any major, metropolitan city, or let's take LA for instance. Imagine walking in downtown LA on a rainy day. There's a series of destruction throughout the city, but you can hear a pin drop. And that was how eerie it was. A couple blocks up front where India Company was, I hear over the radio that they're engaged in targets. And I'm like, we haven't seen one person yet. I'm like, who the fuck are they engaging? And then over the radio, I hear all Brahma units, weapons free. And I think, you hear about that in the movies, but like, when do you ever hear like weapons free in real life? And this is my first deployment, and I'm hearing weapons free, and I'm like, holy shit, like this is really happening. So weapons free is essentially the order we were given to engage any targets that we deemed as a threat. They didn't have to shoot at us. They didn't have to, obviously they had to shoot at us, but if we deemed it a threat, we can engage. I wasn't up there with India Company, but the amount of fire that I had friends that were in their company, when they got off the tracks, it was just, it was just like turning on a light and cockroaches running everywhere and guys shooting at them. And guys were getting shot, guys were getting killed. But we didn't see it from where we were with Lima Company because we were so far back. Once we So our guys started like going into houses by themselves, like because it was just like, oh well, we don't see anybody, so jump over a fence, unlock it by themselves, go and clear a house. Nobody's in here. Like that was the the atmosphere at the time. But then it all changed when uh my buddy Nuno got into a gunfight. He went into a house and he ended up running into a house and went into a house by himself, bullshitting around. And when he went there, he ended up engaging multiple guys, and that kind of started it all. And then James went down the street, went into a door by himself, and he received a AK round to the face in his left or right eye and killed him instantly. He dropped. A gunfight ensued. I'm pretty sure they killed the guys who killed him, but I remember a corpsman. This corpsman we had two corpsmen in our platoon. One of them was, I think he had been in for 15 years. He was an E5. I hated that guy. And it validated why I didn't like him. When James got killed, he would not go to them. When they called corpsman up, he wouldn't go. He said, I'm not going. And it got to the point where like all of us was just going to beat the shit out of him and drag him over there. But the other corpsman, the younger one, this black guy grabbed his bag, said, fuck you, and he ran over there. He was dead. He died instantly. Good dude, but I think that first day was a reality check to like, this is, you come in the Marine Corps and they build you up to be this big thing. We get all the sophisticated weapons at the time. We get all this training, and then you're like, man, we're the greatest fighting force in the world, but we're still human. And seeing James get killed, it was eye-opening. I'm like, this can happen to us. And I think it changed everyone's mentality right there. I think in that moment, boys became men, and they realized like, we're probably in a fight for our lives and we don't even know it. He was a good dude. I think he made a lot of common mistakes that people come from security forces. And security force regiment is on the East Coast. So typically, to back it up a little bit, typically what happened is, if you get a security force contract in the Marine Corps, you do your infantry training, and then you go to security forces. The guys who don't do security force training, they go to the fleet. So these guys are guarding embassies for 3 years. These other infantry guys are doing their job for 3.5 years. And then they have to get sent back to the Fleet Marine Force. So you have one group that have been doing their job in the fight, and then you get these other guys who have not been doing their job in the fight, and now they have rank. So now you have the two sides of the infantry community clashing, because you have a seasoned guy who probably doesn't have the rank, but he has the skills and the knowledge and experience. And then you have this guy from security forces who has zero skills, zero experience, and doesn't have the knowledge. And it's not his fault. The Marine Corps decided to him to go to security forces or painted this picture so he can go over there. He wants to come back and do his job, but now he has to prove himself to the rest of us that he can be an asset, not a liability. And I don't think James was a liability, but he just lacked the experience. Really good guy, but one of the things that, I picked up and learned during the training was like, you don't go clear a room by yourself. No one really had time to comprehend what happened. My good friend to this day, Jose Soto, picked up his fucking comms, still dripping fucking blood, and put it on his head, and went back to work. And he just, he had to pick up his body. He had his helmet with fucking blood. He didn't miss a beat. Came back over there, talked to me. He still had blood dripping down his fucking his personal radio headset. And like, he's younger than me. So that's how we couldn't deal with it. We didn't have time to deal with it. Who were we going to talk to? All the guys that we could talk to, they were in the fight for their lives. So imagine that, imagine me having all those emotions going through and trying to some way figure out and trying to like, materialize what happened or make sense of what just happened. I don't have anyone to talk to. I'm like, fuck, do I buckle up and start crying? Do I say, hey, can we talk about this? Or do I get back on the gun and get ready to get after and protect my, the brothers that was around me? I chose to get back on the gun and say, all right, we're in it. Let's do it. So as the day went on, there was casualties. The casualties just started to build up. Wood and Larson were killed in 1st Platoon. Those guys were my peer group. They were killed and I wasn't there. I just got secondhand information. They went into a house, and a lot of the houses were I wouldn't say complex, but were like mazes. They from what I was told, they went into a house. They cleared the house, but the house had heavy drapes. And as they were leaving the house, guys popped out from behind the drapes and killed Larson and Wood. So, and this is day one. Day one, we've already lost a few guys. Guys got hurt, and like, we're just fucking in it. And I was just like, this is just fucking crazy. I didn't deal with, I didn't really have time to deal with all my emotions until towards the end of the day. And then the end of that day, I remember consolidating the platoon, and I remember on the radio hearing about this. I was on the radio, and all of a sudden it got quiet in the city because we were consolidating for the night because we all were going firm. And I heard a single mortar round. Boom. I was just like, man, that's weird. A single mortar round? Where's the rest of it? And all of a sudden, it was a NCO from 1st Platoon got on the radio because I was getting ready to take the Mark 19 off the mount and clean it. And the radio was by my foot, and I hear him. He got on the radio, and he was just like, we have a lot of people fucking hurt, and I can hear him gurgling. And I didn't know at the time was when the mortar hit, the shrapnel cut his throat. So he was gurgling and on the comm saying, I need help. And with all the stuff that was going on, like, no one was responding to this guy. So my platoon sergeant, Staff Sergeant Bandel at the time, who to this day to me is still an absolute a beast of a fucking man. He's a good man. He's someone that you would want to like break fucking glass in the case of fucking a war breaks out. He told everyone to shut the fuck up to us so he can hear the radio. No one told him what to do. He said, get back in the fucking truck. We drove for 2 blocks. And that was my first mass casualty of my career. I pulled up and it looked like some out of a fucking movie. Marines were spread everywhere. Some Marines were getting dragged in the house. I remember one of the trackers, I'm pretty sure he was a tracker, he got killed because the mortar, when it came down, it landed right in between his legs. So I remember when I pulled up, I remember seeing him in the street dead. Everyone else was sprawled out. It was just like, if someone would have ambushed him right now, it would have took out the rest of them. That the mortar did a number on them. 1st Platoon numbers, I don't know, I think they were at maybe 60, 70. But those numbers were reduced drastically when that mortar hit. Those guys in the entire company, First platoon did some of the most fighting throughout the fucking company, and those guys did the most with less. That includes equipment and people. It's like those guys were fighting for their fucking lives the entire time, and it's not because the battalion didn't want to give them more people. We just didn't have people to fucking give. People were just getting hurt and dying left and right. And a lot of the injuries and a lot of people that were getting killed, they're getting killed from fucking headshots. And this is because of all of urban warfare. You know, they teach you they taught me and, you know, ITB and us doing our CQB training was, you know, throw a grenade. Once the grenade goes off, you go in there. But what we found out in Iraq was you threw a grenade and then you had to sit there and wait. And you're waiting for all the dust inside the room to clear. If you were to throw the grenade and go in the house and instantly go in the room to exploit the HE, you're not going to be able to see anything. So maybe you run past the guy who you want to shoot, or maybe you trip over something and you end up discharging around, or you end up tripping in front of him and he shoots you. So the benefit of exploiting HE, is it really there? Or is it like, or does it just increase the risk? Because now they know you're going to come to the door, but you can't come to the door because you have to wait for the dust to settle. So all the stuff that we learned during CQB training, it almost went out the window. We reduced what we needed to carry. It got to the point to where we needed mags, but I'd rather carry around a backpack full of grenades, because the grenades allowed us to close with the threat that was in the house and at least get to them. And typically we carried 2 grenades on us. 2 grenades wasn't even enough to get in the house, because you still had to get to the courtyard. And before you get once you get in the courtyard, you still have to get in the house. So there's your 2 grenades. So at one point in time, I was clearing houses with platoon. I would get my backpack and fill it up with as many grenades as possible, because that's the amount of grenades we would use to have to breach and get in these houses and even get to the threat, because there were so many corners, doors, windows, and whatnot. And they used everything to not allow us to get in the house as they were shooting at us. But once we got to, we helped first platoon with all their casualties. And that night, I could smell the death through the city. It was just, I will never forget that stench. The bodies of the fighters that we killed in the street, they were still out in the street getting ate up by dogs and cats. Some of the Humvees had blood on them from our guys who were hurt or killed. It was a long night. It was an extremely long night. No one talked about anything. We all sat, we ate our MREs. We probably made a couple jokes. No one talked about, in my platoon, like, you know, James getting killed. They maybe joked about it. And I don't say joked about it like in a disrespectful way, but it's a way of dealing with emotions and trying to bring up things that you want to bring up. But, you know, being 18, 19, like, how do you bring that up? You know, how do you bring that up without the people that you're fighting with looking at you, a lesser man or less violent, which is the last thing that you want to look. You're trying to bring it up. You don't know how, and you're thinking like, man, fucking James got killed. Fuck. Damn, like, you know, what are we gonna do now? And then no one really dives into it in depth and tries to talk about it. And then that was your effort in trying to talk about it, but no one bit. So you just kind of like shy away from it and talk about other stuff. So the first night was, it was long. It was a lot of, just contemplating on what would happen. I think with all the chaos that was going on, and a lot of people don't really understand this, is like, the more dire the situation, the more you're faced with adversity, or in my case, like the possibility of you dying, the more almost peaceful it becomes. You're almost content that, like, you know what, I may not make it out of this. I may die, but I'm going to do everything possible to try to be an asset or be a, and help my brothers that's around me. So I was less, after that first night, I was less worried about dying and more worrying about making sure that I was what I was supposed to be at the time I was supposed to be to help reduce the casualties and help my brothers. It didn't become personal until later on. And I think that's kind of where I lost myself with what I was doing. And then also, like, it affected me later on in life. Throughout the push, you know, we just kept hearing about casualties, people getting killed. Third platoon getting into gunfights on the roof with, you know, a litany of people. You know, we had our ROEs, but, you know, it's crazy what they were doing. I mean, they was using the Red Cross vehicles to resupply each other. The insurgents were using Red Cross vehicles to resupply each other through the town. It's just like, oh, we're not supposed to shoot those. But then I see RPGs and rockets sticking out the back. So it's just like, do I shoot them or do I not? And then the mosque, you know, it was a city of mosques, but every single mosque we ran into had some type of machine gun in it, or they were shooting from it. So it got ridiculous. And they knew our REs, and they knew things that we couldn't shoot at, and they used it against us. There was one incident where the entire company was shooting at this guy, and he was not going down. And I posted up in a alleyway, and I can hear everyone shooting at this guy. I'm like, why the fuck is nobody killing this guy? And the guy I was with, I think his name was Riles. He was the machine gun squad leader. Actually a good guy. He wasn't do what I say, not I do. He was follow me, I'll do exactly what I do type of guy. And I respected him as a junior Marine. I didn't like his arrogance, but I respected how he treated the weapons guys, and he led by example, not by just running his mouth. But he was on a corner, and I was kind of like kneeling by him with the saw kind of like over his right shoulder. And this big fat guy with a man dress just comes out of nowhere running with the AK. And I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, I got him dead to rights. And I just start unloading my saw at this guy. I probably pumped about close to 100 rounds, because this guy was just extremely fat, and it seemed like he was running in slow motion. I know I hit him. I know I hit him multiple times. This fat ass dude just did not go down, did not drop his gun, was just running. And I was just like, what in the hell is going on? And I know for a fact I hit him. He was probably maybe 30 feet away when he crossed in front of me, and I laced him up. But later on, we found out that another portion of the company, I think it was the XO maybe, what they found was a factory with drugs and like all these amphetamines and shit. And these guys were just shooting up, like just constantly with adrenaline and all these drugs. And like these guys would get so crazed off these drugs, and they were just not going down. And like there was just one incident of, I probably shot that dude over a dozen times, and he just kept running. And that was consistent with talking to other Marines throughout the company. It's like we were shooting these guys, and they were just not going down. And then some of the ammo that we got before we went into the city were armor piercing. So we had black tip ammo before we went in the city, and like these guys were just not going down. And it was a little bit nerve-wracking because not only are some of the people and some friends of mine are dying and getting hurt, but I'm shooting these guys and they're not going down. It's like, am I going to shoot a rocket at his chest for him to go down? But it's absolutely insane, you know? November, the point during the entire fight through Fallujah, there was a lot of crazy moments. But I think what set the tone for the rest of my life and career and how I treat people, how I move, and then deal with things, happened on November 18th. My good friend, Luis Figueroa, Cuban-born kid out of LA, great guy, gave me a lot of good advice throughout my career. He was one of the biggest junior Marines, but he was like a big teddy bear. Got in trouble for not doing anything malicious, but he was just, he's almost like a big goof. You know, there was one time where we were walking from the Air Force Chow Hall in Abu Ghraib, and it was me and him, and one of the Army guys stopped us, and they were like, "You're not going to salute us?" And I was just like, I didn't know what to do. You know, I had a to-go plate in my hand, and then Fig was next to me, and then you got these two fat Army officers that was like, "So you're not going to salute us?" I'm thinking to myself, like, who's going to fucking salute you? You have two plates in your hand. And Fig, not being an asshole or disrespectful, just with a straight face, just like, "Sir, Marines don't salute in the field." And he's just like, "You're going to fucking salute me." And this Lance Corporal is arguing with this Army captain about, you know, Marine Corps traditions. Like, "Hey, sir, you know, like, we don't salute in combat or the field because officers get shot in the face." And he was just like, "Are you being a smart ass?" He's like, "No, sir, I don't want you to get shot in the face." And I was just like, and I'm sitting there with a plate, and I'm like, do I salute? Do I not salute? Fuck it, he's not saluting, I'm not going to salute. And this went on for 5 minutes, and I'm like, okay. And then it stopped only because we had indirect fire into the camp. So, you know, that was just him. He always just did the right thing or got in trouble because he thought what he was doing was right. November 17th, we didn't bed down, but we stopped pushing for the night in Fallujah. And we were all joking around. And he said, you know, Marines just joking, saying stupid stuff. So he made a joke I didn't like. I think I was just looking for something to be mad about because I was just not dealing with what was going on, with all the death and all the stuff that I seen in the city. I didn't know how to deal with it. So I think I was just looking for a fight or looking for someone or something to kind of like take it out on. So we ended up getting into, I didn't like what he said. I told him fuck off. And later on that night, he came up to me and he put his hand on my shoulder and he was just like, "Hey, I'm sorry if whatever I said to you was bad. That wasn't my intentions. I love you like a brother." And I told him like, fuck off or whatever. And I just went to sleep. Didn't think anything of it. But he responded with like, "Hey, I still love you regardless whether you hate me right now or not." He's like, "Tomorrow we're going to wake up and we're going to be best friends again." And that was the last really conversation that we had. The next day we got up, and typically when we're pushing in the city, we kind of stay left and right from each other. But the day we got up, extremely quiet, it was weird. Corporal Mayo, who was part of the mortar squad, this dude was legit. He was launching mortars by hand across the street because it's like, fuck it, we don't have any support. We're going to be your support. And he starts launching mortars out of a tube across the street. I thought it was cool, but some of them didn't go off. So we start pushing. We get to an intersection and our lieutenant tells us to stop because there's no one on our left and right. We had pushed up way too far. We get up there and his squad is told to go in a house and clear it out. Well, they find out that it's like a makeshift hospital or something. There's a lot of blood in there, a lot of rags. From outside, one of the things that I noticed was the house was kind of like boarded up, the windows, which was like a clear indicator like something is out of the baseline. That day, that morning, when his squad was told to go in the house, his head was down, and I was just like, it wasn't him. It didn't seem like that. That's normal him. So as he was walking, he walked past my vehicle, and I told him, "Hey, Fig, keep your head in the game." And at the time, like, he was concerned. He had a true concern about his squad leader, Corporal Zacher. He had in his head like Corporal Zacher wanted him dead. And I was just like, don't worry about that guy or whatever. And I think he had that mentality because, from what they were telling me, it was like Zacher was like, he always wanted them to go in the fucking building first or whatever. So all the junior Marines that was in my peer group absolutely hated that guy. I thought he was a piece of shit because of his leadership style. Once my squad leader, Sergeant Haslip, was sent home because he got into an IED blast, Corporal Butler became our new squad leader, and that guy, he was a Irish kid, was fucking great, led by example, gave us shit when we fucked up, but like other than that, he didn't fuck with us, and that's what I respect him to this day because of that. They had two leadership styles. Zacher, I always saw him fucking with everybody, so I kind of like stayed away from him. But Figueroa had in his head that like Zacher wants me dead, and I was just like, don't worry about him. Just keep your head in the game. That's the last thing I told him. He walked in the house. There was one guy that ran. There was one guy was in front of me. It was a Marine. One shot rung off. And I asked him, like, what was that? And he was just like, I got one guy with an AK running from left and right. And I was like, okay, I don't see anything. And then another guy to my left let off another round. He's like, I got another guy running down this way. And I was just like, what the fuck is going on? So I got my saw out and I started looking through my sights, and I see one guy probably about 150 meters away. He's ducking. He has a ski mask on, and I can see the AK. I start shooting at him. I can see the rounds. I can see the rounds hitting him and popping up, but he's still just like crouching and running towards me. And then he cuts off in the house. And then after that, it just seems like all hell broke loose. Like everyone's shooting everywhere, and it seems like there's people all in front of us. And then I see Zacher come running back out, and he's asking, like, give me a body bag. And I look down and I see his, I think it was his trousers had blood on it, fresh blood. And he was like, give me a body bag. Figaro's dead. And at the time I froze. I couldn't really, I didn't know what to think because I just spoke to him and I felt like shit because the first thing that popped up is we had a horrible argument the other day and he was the one who was more remorseful than me. And I remember him telling me the other day that when we wake up tomorrow, I'm still going to love you. You're still going to be my brother. And my last real words to him was, fuck you. And then we got him out the house, and I remember looking at his face, and it broke my heart. I know I remember his lip being split from the bullet that he took, one of the bullets that he took. From what happened, he went into the house, him and another Iraqi soldier went down a single hallway. He crouched in front of the door, and as the Iraqi opened up the door, there was a guy on the other end and just filled him with holes, just unloaded everything on him. And I would like to think that he died instantly for comfort, but I don't know. I know I know he took so many rounds. That was the first time that I had to put someone in a body bag. I didn't know how to fucking use it. They gave us these fucking body bags before we went in the city, and half the time we were throwing them out the vehicle because I'm not fucking dying, so I don't need a body bag. But with Figueroa, like I say, he was a big kid. He's probably 220 when he was shot. He was shot so many times, his body just swelled up. And I remember looking in his face and his eyes was rolled back, and it took so many of us to help him, to put him in the body bag. And like, when he was like on the vehicle, I was just like, when they drove away, I was just like, I'm going to kill every fucking person in this goddamn city. And that day, we just went to fucking work. I unloaded so many rounds out of the Mark 19 and my machine gun and shot so many fucking AT4s, I can't even remember. I just wanted to kill every single person with a gun in their hand that I can fucking find in that city. And we stopped once we identified that day. Once we identified someone was in a house shooting at us, we just stopped clearing houses. We just start fucking leveling the house because our platoon sergeant did not want to lose anybody else. So, it absolutely broke my heart how he died in our last interaction. It set the tone for what type of friend that I want to be. That point in my life up until now. Up until after that happened, I made it my point to make sure that I'm a good friend, that I'm a dependable friend. So after November 18th, there was still some fighting, but I think the day after it started to subside. We got to the Jolan district, which was probably the worst part of the city. We stayed from then on. We stayed in the flour factory towards the Euphrates, where the bridge was, where they hung those contractors. So the amount of insurgents that we killed in that city were just astronomical, and you could smell it. So what we would do was, as we were fighting, and every time we would have an enemy KIA, we would mark on the side of the house this number of bodies. Well, once they started clearing the bodies, there was a mortuary unit. I don't know how the Marine Corps comes up with this shit. There was a mortuary unit, call sign school bus, and we would hear them on the radio, and they would, Brahma, this is school bus. we were picking up 5 students from grid, X, Y, and Z. And the students they were referring to was the dead bodies of their insurgents. So you would hear this throughout the city, like school buses here, school buses there. It was fucking, it was almost fucking morbid. But there were so many bodies in that city. You couldn't go, 50 feet or a block without seeing a body. And it was just the violence of action that we had to utilize throughout the fighting. There was just no time to pick up the bodies. We came back to pick them up, but being 2 weeks out in the sun and the cats and the dogs, like I remember I remember 2 instances where there was this fat guy that was, I don't know, it was a bunch of fat guys over there running around with machine guns. But there was this guy who was caught in the middle of the street with an RPG. He got killed. And I saw him 2 weeks later and he looked at like a dumpster because he was so bloated. But the cats and dogs were eating at him. So it was just insane. And then there's another instance where we were walking through the palm groves and I thought that, so I can see, it was near a well. I could see a PKM sticking out on one side. And then I can see the guy's feet and some Nikes and some Adidas pants sticking out on the other side. So we were like, okay, we see a guy. So we were setting up an ambush. And when we got to where he was, well, the guy was just skeleton from waist up and his body was intact waist down. It was the weirdest thing I ever seen. It's just, we destroyed the machine gun, but like those things were so relevant throughout walking around there for those from November through January. It became normal. So of all the violence and all the stuff that we've seen, at 18, 17 in some cases, you're grappling with all this. You're grappling with that and in reality, and you're trying to figure out like how to go about it, I guess. And then when we got back, we came back January of 2005. We got back and it was a rough deployment. A lot of people got killed. A lot of people didn't make it back. A lot of people were never the same because of the wounds. But people started to commit suicide left and right. Like it was a daily occurrence. There were so many people that committed suicide. Like it got bad. I remember Kilo being put on Cinderella Livo because they just constantly had people, getting hurt. There was guys nose diving off the Hilton. I think it was in Anaheim or somewhere else, wherever the Hilton's at, in Orange County, nose diving off the Hilton. There was a guy who got killed because he was, he decided to jump out the car on the 5 and do side starter hops and got hit by a fucking semi. Guys hanging themselves in the barracks, married people hanging themselves at home on base. It was almost like a fucking epidemic. And, one of the things, war changed, time changes, but, I used to ask people like, World War II was savage, but one of the things that was different from World War II versus now is World War II, Marines were in the Pacific. Once they got done with all the fighting, they got on the boats. And it took them about 2 months to get back, give or take less or more. But at the time, they were around their brothers and they could talk about the things that happened. So it allowed them the time to talk and to discuss what they seen. Fast forward now, Iraq, we went through all this stuff. We did all this killing. We saw all this death. We saw all this tragedy in Iraq. And in less than 24 hours, you're back in the States and you're walking to the grocery store and you're 17, 18, and 19-year-old and you have no one to talk about it. And you're grappling with all this stuff, which it's a recipe for mental health and suicide that I saw within the battalion that it started to run rampant. And I think now, today, it's gotten, it's night and day. It's gotten better. The facilities, the support, what the Marine Corps and the Navy has done to support service members so they can get to the care and get to the people to help them right the ship mentally and physically. So it's changed over the last 2 decades, which is great. But like, young men and women came back, minds and sometimes bodies absolutely broken, and they had no one to talk to. And if you say that, oh, you know, you can just talk to family members or people that know you close, well, there's people in my family that I've never talked to this about, and you're scared to, I just want somebody to listen to me. I don't want anybody to judge me because of some of the things that you saw or did. You start to look at yourself in a different light. It's just like, man, you're tussling. Am I a bad person? Am I a good person? And you need someone to come in and say, hey, what you went through wasn't normal. That's okay. You were doing your job. You know, it was in self-defense. You know, it's okay. And we didn't have that back then. So I think that's what was it was a recipe for the suicides that, you know, I seen and heard about once we got back from our first deployment. So when I got back, did I get the opportunity to take time off and go home? Back then, the rotations were so relevant and short. So I got back January of 2005. You get about 30 days or 3 weeks to go home, but then you're right back in the mix getting ready to deploy. I deployed later on that year, probably 9 months later. I was back in Iraq, in Barwana, Haditha area, up near the Syrian border. And then if you think you got 30 days when you get home, another 30 days before you of leave so you can go back home. So everything in between is crunch time. And now you're right back over there. So where do you get the time as a young man or gal to deal with, you know, the mental hurdles or the images or the stuff that you dealt with, and losing a friend like others, in the time that you go home for 30 days and talk to the family who have absolutely no clue what you did and they couldn't possibly help you deal with anything? Or is it the time where you come back and you're constantly in the field, constantly training, and then, oh, you're getting another 30 days to go back home to be around a family who now you start to disassociate with because they have you don't have anything in common with them anymore. So it just, you know, it is a perfect environment for PTSD to grow and thrive. And a lot of, you know, my peers at the time, they develop those signs and symptoms, but you don't show them because you don't want to be the guy to say, hey, I need help. You know, you want to be the guy to say, hey, I'm ready to go back to deploy with my boys so I can be in the fight with them. You're itching to get back into the fight because that's the most simplest thing that you know how to do. And it's least complex at home. I just want to get back over there so I can do exactly what is simple. Other people may think that's weird, but you're thinking like, well, all I have to do is worry about sleeping, patrolling, and not doing anything stupid. If I don't do anything stupid, then no one's going to get hurt and I won't get hurt. And I sleep and I eat and then I'm ready to go back and I'll do my job. That is simple. I can do that. Do I want to go back and try to explain to people why I get agitated, why I have nightmares, why I have this? No, they don't. And it's because now you have to explain to them about how it happened, why it happened, and all this other stuff. And then they're going to start asking dumb questions that you think is irrelevant. And then the distance is just going to grow. The frustration is going to grow. It's just, like I said, you know, the recipe and environment for PTSD to manifest and flourish was there back in the day. So So my third deployment, we was tasked to go on a MEU, Marine Expeditionary Unit, the 13th MEU, I think. And I didn't know what a MEU was, but from what I told, it was like the crown jewel of the Marine Corps, which it still is. But all the senior Marines told me, like, you definitely want to go on a MEU. So I was excited. I was like, for once, I don't have to worry about getting shot at. I can just go on a MEU. Well, lo and behold, that would be the deployment that I would get shot. So we trained for about a year, and then we boarded the ships out of San Diego, and then we sailed off towards CENTCOM. While we were there, once we got the order to go, we were tasked to go into Iraq. I originally thought we were going to Afghanistan, but they took a small contingency of MARSOC Marines. This was in 2007. You had Det 1, and then MARSOC started to rechange their name and started to operate. And they were deployed with us. So they took a small contingency of MARSOC guys, and they took a platoon and they went into in Afghanistan. Our battalion went into Iraq. And that's when the EFPs started to come about. If a lot of people don't know, EFPs are explosive form projectiles. They essentially turn molten metal into projectiles that just cut through tanks like butter. The fast forward, my platoon was separated with this canal. What happened was there was IEDs that was just laden everywhere. And the EOD team that was attached to our company, they went to go check a IED, and it killed the entire team, essentially, from the secondhand information that I got. The dog, the corpsman, the team leader, it got them all. So we had multiple IEDs that was on the bridge that was disconnected us with the company. So that night, we pushed on the backside of this ridge line, and we were spread out, entire platoon. We were mounted in trucks. So one thing that popped out for me, it was essentially an open desert. There was a single-story building that was probably about 700 meters away. I was just like, I saw it, and I was just like, nah, nobody's stupid enough to engage an entire platoon. So that night, I had my Vic. I was near my platoon sergeant, and an explosion went off. And it was from another portion of the platoon. They said, like, hey, we just ran over a mine. We need help. So I took my vehicle, and I knew that, I'm like, okay, walking into a minefield, but the guys need help. So what I did was I grabbed, and now I don't know why I didn't fucking use my NVGs, but no, I know why I didn't use my NVGs is because we ran out of batteries. So because we couldn't resupply because of the company and the IED threat that was in the area, we started to run out of batteries overnight. We ran out of batteries with our thermals, NVGs. So what I did was I used a flare, the pop-up flares. I popped the flare, and I told the vehicle, stay about 30 to 40 meters behind me and just drive my route. So I was like, if I step on an IED and it blows up, like, it'll get me, it won't get the vehicle. So I did this for about, I don't know, maybe 400 to 500 meters, and I got to the other vehicle. There was a guy who was hurt. I helped put him on top of my Humvee. We got on the top, and we drove back through the same route, and we got him out of there. He was fine. I think his name was Tharp. I think he was a security force guy, but we got him out of there. And then the next day, I think it was around like 1300, and my vehicle and my platoon sergeant's vehicles was probably about 30 feet away. And that day, the wind, you ever been in an area where the wind is blowing so hard you couldn't even hear the person standing next to you talk? So my 4 guys in the vehicle run out of water, run out of food. I probably got like 2 MREs left. And I tell my guys, like, hey, I'm going to stay right here. I'm going to go talk to the platoon sergeant. and see if we can get like a resupply, because we're out of batteries, we're out of water, and we got 2 MREs left. So I started walking over there, and the wind is blowing hard. I'm walking from right to left. The wind is blowing from left to right. And as I'm walking, all of a sudden, it feels like somebody hits me in the elbow with a baseball bat. And the gun flings from my hand. And I look down, and there's blood just squirting out of my arm. I knew what it was. I was just like, that's definitely a fucking sniper. So as I start to run, another round hits by my foot. And I'm like, holy shit, this dude has me he has me zeroed in. So I finally get to my platoon sergeant's vehicle, and their vehicle is like turned away, so it's kind of protecting them. And I get to his vehicle, and I was like, hey, I'm fucking shot. And they look at me and it's like, no, you're not. And when I turned, the blood was just spraying everywhere. And I was just like, I'm fucking shot. And my heart's racing. And then the guy in the back, this PFC Richie, good guy. And I'm like, somebody put a tourniquet on it. And they asked me, where did it come from? I'm like, single-story building, 600-700 meters away. And my platoon sergeant got on the radio, and the entire platoon just started opening up on this fucking building. And Richie is back there. It's his first deployment. And I'm sitting there bleeding the fuck out. And I started throwing up. I think I was going into shock. And I'm telling Richie, like, that's when we got those new tourniquets, the ones you cinch. So he's sitting there, blood's everywhere. I'm throwing up, and I'm like yelling at him, like, put the fucking tourniquet on. And then he takes the tourniquet. My bone is kind of popping out, on my humerus. He takes the tourniquet, puts it over the wound, and cinches down. I almost fainted. I grabbed him by the neck, pushed him back, and was just like, I started to feel sleepy and tired. And I was so pissed. I was just like, it's not how you fucking do it. Take it off. And as he took it off, more blood started to come out. And then by that time, I love the fucking Navy. My corpsman comes from 500 something fucking meters away, where the vehicle ran over an IED the night prior. This guy gets out of his vehicle, no flak, no Kevlar, no weapon, with his med bag, runs through the fucking minefield, runs through the firefight that's happening, gets over to me, looks at me, tells me, shut up, sit down, fucking hits me with some morphine, wraps me up, put the tourniquet on. By that time, like, they called for a helo to come over there to get me. And I'm like falling asleep, and I'm like, I just want to take a sleep. And all of a sudden, like, Corpsman was a big guy, and I've never been slapped so hard in my fucking life. He reaches back, slaps the shit out of me, and was just like, don't go to fucking sleep, wake up. And I was just like, yes, sir. So, and like my arms, while I was running, I was just like, instinctively, I started moving my fingers. I was like, I can't move my arm, but I can move my fingers. So I was like, all right, I still got feeling in my arm. So, they do a gun run on a house, and at the same time, the 53 lands. I am so exhausted. It feels like I just wanted to sleep. And I was so exhausted, I probably got smacked by the corpsman 3 or 4 times. But they get me on the bird, and they take me away. I was about 205 when they got me, because I was just jacking steel on a mule. I woke up 3 days later. I was probably close to 160 pounds, because I had lost so much fucking blood. It was ridiculous. But again, like, I was eating protein, a lot of water weight. So it was, I lost a large amount of weight from the time that I got shot, and then I woke up. The cool story in that is my XO, great guy. When they did the gun run, someone picked up the shell casings from the Cobra. He got the pilot of the Cobra to, the XO put the date, the time, the location, and got the pilot to sign and gave me the shell casing when he got back to the States. So it was great. But when I got back July 1st. I got shot June 21st at 13:30. I got back to the States July 1st. From July through January, it took everything in me to rehabilitate myself because they told me I was going to get out the Marine Corps because I couldn't bend my arm past 90 degrees. So took a lot of soul searching, a lot of time at the barracks, just pulling on things. And then somehow, some way, I ended up showing up to SOI to be an instructor at School of Infantry West. I don't know how I did it, but I went from losing all the weight to not being able to use my arm to passing a PFT and showing up to SOI and passing to be an instructor. I think I wasn't ready to get out. So I went to the hospital and they told me you're going to require a lot of physical therapy. And the doctor told me I would not bend my arm past. I would never be able to bend my arm past 90 degrees because of the damage. Like in my head, I told him fuck off, and then I left. I didn't show up for 2 months. When I came back, I was so fucking hard-headed, and I didn't want to accept no for an answer, that in my room, I just started like pulling on things, and I slowly started extending my arm out. And by the time they saw me about 2.5 months later, like I could do somewhat of a push-up, and my arm was completely extended. And the doctor was like, I don't know what you're doing, but just keep doing it. I maybe did physical therapy twice, but it was all on my own. And it's because they just lit a fire in me when they said that you're never going to be able to do this again. I was just like, yeah, I'll fucking show you. I got back to 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines in March of 2011. The reason I wanted to come back because at the time the monitor said they were going to Afghanistan, and for a long time I had been chasing Afghanistan. One of the things that stood out, and I kind of threw caution to wind, but I talked to my buddies and they kept saying like Afghanistan is different. It's different. And these are all the guys who I had my first deployment, but I just couldn't connect the dots on why that these guys were just like essentially telling me like, stay away from Afghanistan. And I was just like, it can't be as bad as my first deployment. So what is over there? And these are guys that did fighting with me in Phantom Fury. They lost legs. Some of them died. Some of them lost both legs. Some of them were more mentally scarred from Afghanistan than they were in Iraq. And I just wasn't listening to it. I was like, I need to get that deployment in. It was like a check in a box for me. So I heard that 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines was going back to Afghanistan. Easy choice, send me over there. But I wanted to do something different. And I was just like, I've been in the rifle platoon my entire career. I want to do something different. So when I checked in, I walked down to the sniper platoon, asked them, when they were doing NDOCs, and they was like, hey, our next NDOC in a month. And my company commander at the time in Lima Company was just like, hey, I think you're a great guy, good candidate. I'll let you go take the NDOC, just stay with me until May. So kept my nose clean, did everything right. And then I got accepted into the sniper platoon. It was a whole new world and a whole new world of things to relearn. I felt like I was a PFC again in a good way. The working in small teams, the different weapon systems, the different approach to training, the different mission, it was all different. So I was engaged. I felt like I had buy-in when it came to some of the training that we were doing. It was extremely hard. The mental capacity that I needed to be successful in a sniper platoon far more outweighed than what I had experienced in previous years, because I was required to think on my feet with less assets, less people, and I was a more valued asset within an infantry battalion. So it drove me to be successful, but it also, it just gave me that fire that I needed to going back, after spending, 4.5 years in the infantry unit. I just wanted to do something different. The shooting it was the first time me shooting a long gun, a precision rifle. There was a learning curve because I just couldn't understand the manipulation of the rifle scope, the weapon system, and everything else. How they patrolled was differently. How they approached problems were differently. It wasn't shoot first, ask questions later. It was get to point A to point B without being seen or compromised, providing information and advice to the ground commander or the battalion commander. And then not only are you potentially engaging targets, but you're also providing important information that's going to drive decisions on the ground. You see what they think they know, or you're confirming that. And sometimes that includes changing their entire plans based off the information you provided. And to me, I took that to heart. I was just like, man, I felt like I'm actually, what my job was doing was actually making a change. And then the potential factor that we were going back into combat, I felt more confident going to Afghanistan within a sniper team than I would in the infantry squad. Not that it was less, but it's because I just wanted to know what I was doing was making a difference. So, and that being in the sniper platoon kind of gave me that sense. I was there for a couple months, and I went from being a nav man to an assistant team leader to a team leader. And when we deployed, they split the teams up on the MEU. We're on the MEU again, the 11th MEU. And it was great. I got to train. I probably did more training than I've ever done in any unit within a sniper platoon. It was from training to conventional forces to training with soft forces to training with other sniper teams. It was just insane how much training that we were involved in, or people wanted to train with us. So I got more than what I asked for. I was happy that I got to do it. When we got back from that deployment, I got a chance to go to sniper school, which was, oh goodness, I don't think I was ready for that place. The first 2 weeks from when it started, I went there as a sergeant and a staff sergeant. The first 2 weeks, I lost about 25 pounds. It was just constant running. And I was like, this is crazy. During sniper school, there was a funny moment. We were doing, we had a class on multiple threat engagements. And I'm sitting there getting the class, during the classes, they always like to start off with attention gainer. So I don't know if you remember Lime Leak back in the day, or Live Leak. Yeah, I think it was Live Leak. Yeah. So Live Leak was like a morbid version of YouTube where you can see all this stuff that was happening overseas or in wars. So we were doing multiple threat engagement class, and they decided to do an attention gainer. And on the video, they were like, hey, this is what you don't do. So you see a service member in a flight suit with a 203 walking from a vehicle from right to left. And all of a sudden you see the service member get shot and the gun blown out of his hand. And then he runs off into off screen. And then they stop the video and it's like, you see that dumbass? That's what you don't do. And it hit me. This is the video of me getting shot in Iraq in 2007. Fast forward, it's 2012. I'm in sniper school, and like I'm the attention gainer in fucking sniper school, being shot by a fucking sniper. I was just like, in hindsight, I was just like, man, it comes back around, and my dumbass is on a attention gainer video in sniper school. Like, how crazy is that?
Did they know that was you?
They didn't know it was me, but when they found out it was me, they were just like, cool, come to the front. And I went to the front, and I was doing push-ups for the entire class for being a dumbass that got shot by a sniper. I was just like, whatever. So,
What was the lesson? What were you? What did they want you to do?
the lesson was to don't be complacent and make yourself a hard target. Well, I didn't think someone would have the balls to engage a Marine that had a platoon worth of vehicles with medium and heavy crew serve weapons in an open desert by yourself. So yeah, I mean, the story, I mean, the lesson behind the video was true. Like, don't be a dumbass and be a hard, and be a soft target and just walking around, like no one's there. So, I personally got the lesson. 2020, I went to, the previous deployment, I was the golf company operations chief for the 31st MEU. Once we got back, I was supposed to go back to 1-4 because I had TAD orders from 1-4. But my ops chief at the time, Jason Neal, helped me out, and he got me to stay, which was great. I knew they were going back overseas to the Special Purpose MAGTF, which is like a ground version of the MEU. But it's the Special Purpose MAGTF Central Command, which they ended up dissolving later on. Not for anything bad. It's just, the purpose for creating and dissolving a unit comes and goes depending on the operational atmosphere. So I was asked to, did I want to go to a company or did I want to come up to the S3? Our community has been moving towards having a mass sergeant within the S3. So I chose to, like, yeah, sure, I'll come up there. I want to be a master guns one day. So I figured like it'll be a good experience for me, especially because I thought I would get operational time. Throughout the workup, we had been hearing about the issues and what had been going on in Afghanistan, and there was potential to there be a NEO. So it was a foreshadow until we actually ended up in country. Once we deployed as a MAGTF in country, we were arrayed through various countries throughout CENTCOM, supporting different missions, but also, like I said, it's essentially like a ground MEU. Once we start throughout the weeks leading up to us being deployed to Afghanistan, we receive intel briefs, and I remember sitting in one of the briefs, and I was just like, I was noticing throughout every time we do this, the Taliban controlled area was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and was essentially converging on Kabul. And I was just like, man, I wonder if anybody else is seeing this. So sure, I'm sure they was. It's just my observation from all the briefs. So we were back and forth. We were essentially the main effort up until July 15th. And the MEU was roped into this, and essentially they were at a certain time in July, they were told, like, you will take over as the main effort. We did all the planning, all the work, figured it out. We had wanted to go there earlier and do it at a separate base, but Kabul ended up being the base we do it out of. So when go time was ready, I don't know what happened with the MEU, but apparently, you know, they didn't have assets in place. But they ended up going with a small contingency. And when I got there, it was the crisis response company, which was Echo Company 2-1, and then basically the entire C2 for 2nd Battalion 1st Marines. I'll take it back. I think it's like the forward command. I got there with the CO, the OPSO, and essentially people that we needed to operate and control what was going on. It was an absolute shit show when we arrived. When we arrived at night, as we were coming in, the pilot told us, like, hey, there's possibly Taliban or insurgents within the base. Go to condition 1. And I'm thinking, like, man, I haven't been on a high like this since my first deployment. So condition 1 in a bird, and like as we're getting on the deck, we get there and there is an array of coalition troops and personnel all on a line facing towards the airfield. I didn't know what was going on. And once we got there, there was contractors trying to leave. It was just an absolute shit show. We get in there, we get into the jock. We found a space within the building and we start setting up. And the first thing we noticed in the daytime is just like we did not have enough personnel, and we just needed everyone. We needed as many people as we could for what we needed to accomplish on the ground. And we started slowly like flying more forces in from the Special Purpose MACTAF. Throughout that time there, I would say it was the only way you could describe it is chaos. You know, the contractors left. The vehicles that we needed were theirs. So we had to, you know, Marines improvise. They started breaking into the vehicles, hot wiring the vehicles so we can use them to transport personnel, equipment. You know, one of the things that when I say I got to experience the wide array of the Marine Corps, the first time through my first deployment, I got to experience true combat. Midway through my career, I got to experience a MEU. The end of my career, I got to truly see what we're capable of doing when it comes to like helping people. To see a sea of people with blue passports, Americans, you know, even when there was a bomb threat and we knew about it. But when asked, if you would have asked one of the Marines, do you want to stay on the gate, on the tower, and risk being killed by a suicide bomb versus leaving Americans, you know, every single time they would say they would rather stay. So there was some true patriotism that was just on display throughout that deployment. Like, what greater cause than for you as an American in a foreign land to be helping Americans? Like it was great. There was, you know, you can see over the towers. You know, I spent a lot of time rotating from Abbey Gate to the COC to going up to see where 1st Battalion 8th Marines was at during North Gate. And it was just nothing but chaos. Like there was no set plan. I mean, we had a plan, but that plan went out the door once we got there. We even had measures to mitigate COVID, but it's like that's the least thing you can worry about once you get over there. The female trauma team that came over there with us, those ladies should be, man, they were phenomenal. It's an all female trauma team, and they were absolutely fucking great. Like, I would go to war with those ladies any fucking day of the week. Like they were awesome. So they were taking care of women, they were taking care of children, they were taking care of anyone that was hurt. They ended up moving in vicinity of Abbey Gate so they can care for wounded personnel or people who was just generally hurt. And because my opso, Ben Suffin, who's a dude, has a 10-pound brain, great problem solver, great Marine, still a good mentor of mine. He decided to move the trauma team closer to Abbey Gate, just in case there was any incident that would produce mass casualties so they can be at the point of friction. And lo and behold, he made the right decision, because those ladies were probably, and the corpsmen on the scene, were the reasons that a lot more people didn't die that day. They were taking care of casualties. They were moving casualties. I mean, you name it, they were doing everything. When the bomb blew, I was in the COC. I was watching the drone feed, and that day I made a joke to it wasn't a joke, but it was kind of like, hey, you should probably not do this. My CO and my OPSO and the Sergeant Major constantly kept going down to Abbey Gate together. And I told them, like, hey, it's probably not a good idea that you all keep going down to Abbey Gate together, because all it takes is one bomb to kind of like decapitate the fucking command structure right now. Well, that morning, they decided to go down to Abbey Gate. And again, they were doing what they thought was right. They were being at the point of friction. They were trying to mitigate problems, rightfully so. I don't think what happened couldn't have been, if you see the pictures that people took, there is a sea of people. I'm pretty sure I can point out 50 million threats, but you can't eliminate threats. You can try to reduce them, but with a sea of people that's trying to get in, I mean, everyone had a backpack. Everyone had a black backpack. So you do what you can, you mitigate the risks, and then you hope for the best. And all the combat I've seen, you will never eliminate a possibility of people dying. You can reduce the risk, but you can never eliminate it. I think they did everything that they could to reduce that with devices, with ensuring Marines were being hard targets, spraying people out, doing what they thought was best. But that day it was just a bad day for everybody. While I was in COC, the drone was scanning, and all of a sudden, like, I saw a cloud of smoke, and then I saw what appeared to be Marines being carried and dragged out of the area where it looked like it exploded. I honestly told everyone in the COC, like, I think there was an ID that happened, like something went wrong. And it was like, no, I'm like, I know for a fact, like, something just happened. And I had control of the floor of the COC at the time. And I got on the radio and I told the radio operator, like, hey, try to get comms with somebody. And no one would get on comms. And all of a sudden, I heard my OPSO, Ben Suffin, he got on the radio, and his voice was a little broken. He was just like, I have casualties. I forgot exactly what he said, but it was, in summary, I have Marines and civilian casualties. He didn't know how many, and he needed help. So the radio operator was kind of like fumbling over his words. I got on the phone, I got on the radio, and was just like, hey, OPSO, what do you need? He's like, I need help. And at that time, after talking to him, he was injured. He was also trying to help other Marines who were KIA and seriously wounded on the ground. And he was also trying to talk to me on the radio at the same time. So I sent someone to go to the JOC to get some help, and they came back. 1-8 was what 1-8 was phenomenal that day. They helped out a lot. Shawn Hughes, who was the ops chief for, he was the ops chief that was a part of the MU, came over there. I told him what I needed. He gave me exactly what I needed. They sent out vehicles, personnel to come over there and just started doing a round robin with all the with as many people in vehicles as they could to get the injured. We had a litany of coalition forces that were there. I mean, you name it. And another thing that helped out the situation was there was an abundance of soft medical personnel there. Those guys get far more extensive training and medical training than conventional forces does. And by having all them there, all their medical personnel instantly consolidated at Role 2, which was the next echelon of care outside of the trauma team that we had at Abbey Gate. And it was beautiful to see them work. So as I was talking to initially Major Suffin, he was medevac. I didn't know he was injured at the time. I started talking to the CO. He got on the hook. I can hear him controlling traffic. He's talking to the company commanders, trying to get the situation secure. And then also had personnel from the Joint Task Force come in. They were trying to talk to me, and I was just, dealing with one thing after another. As it got dark, that's when I decided to hand over the floor to our ops chief, the battalion ops chief at the time. And I went down to Role 2, and it was heartbreaking to see all the Marines that passed, and then all the Marines who were in Role 2 getting taken care of. So the Marines were getting taken care of, but again, like, just my luck, I get to see a mass casualty twice in my Marine Corps career. I talked to my OPSO. He was in the back with a ton of other Marines getting patched up, and I brought him his phone and his bag, and first thing I told him was, like, call your wife, and she needs to hear from you that you're okay. You don't gotta tell her anything else. Just tell her you're okay, you're alive. When I got shot, they called my mom and told her, like, hey, your son was injured in combat, and that's all we can say right now. And then they hung up. And my dad was livid. Imagine, 2007 military calling you saying your son was injured in combat, and then they just hung up the phone. They didn't tell her anything else. So, my mom was like, just, she was crying, everything else. My dad got a hold of some people, and they found out, got a little bit more information, but I knew his wife was pregnant at the time. So I told him, like, you call her, let the information come from you, not from a third, fourth, or fifth party. I knew she was pregnant, and I knew that, she might have an emotional reaction, but the comfort in his voice and knowing that he's alive is going to be better than not knowing, or it coming from somebody else. So, one of the, as horrible of what happened to the Marines, sailor and soldier that lost their life, one of the things that I want to highlight was the difference in care and support that those Marines got when we got back to Saudi Arabia. When I came back from Iraq and all the people that we lost, I got some pizza, we got beer, and then after that, I was in a room by myself before I went home the next day. I had no one to talk to. A about what was going on in my head, what I had experienced, what I had saw. And it manifested over the years into PTSD. Now, I think the Marine Corps and, you know, the Department of War in total has, it's gotten extremely better. When we got back from Afghanistan, these guys had a support group. They had medical personnel. They had therapists. There were meetings throughout the week so they can talk about what happened. And most important, like one of the important things that they had there was guys like me who had experience that could tell them like, hey, yes, what you just experienced was absolutely fucking horrible, but you should talk about it. You should keep talking about it, and you should continue to talk about it. Men in general don't like to be vulnerable, and they don't like to talk about things that make them feel uncomfortable. But with other men who are there, who've had similar experiences, I think it allows them to open that door and walk through it without being judged, and women as well. But having myself and other veterans who had been there, who've had specifically, you know, that was my first mass casualty, experience things that they were going through, the emotions, the mental hurdles. Like, I thought that this is great. Like, this is where it counts, the initial shock, and being able for them to talk about it and have an open forum so everyone who experienced that can sit there and talk about it. So do I think that they still will develop PTSD? Yeah. But I think that initial shock of them having the resources and the support and the personnel who's had similar experience right there, I think is critical and is key for them to actually live normal lives. So how I softened my blow as I transitioned to becoming a civilian, and then what things that I do to reduce it is, it's another problem. Like, how I looked at it is, what gives me the anxiety about getting out? One is the security with income. All right, cool. Well, what do I need to do to make sure that I'm competitive in the civilian market? So I started looking to attain skills, hard skills and soft skills that were, I can be an asset to a company when I get out. I think I already have a lot of the soft skills, the ability to problem solve. I don't care what kind of problem it is. I don't care the industry. If you give me a problem, if you give me a time, resources, and personnel, I will figure it out. That is just, and I don't think you can't just get that in a civilian sector. You get that over time dealing with adversity and hardship. You know, if you put a Marine in a room and like, hey, there's a problem, now it's like a challenge. Now it's just like, he doesn't want to fail, so he's going to figure it out. That ability to tackle adversity, to me, is a skill that you can't teach. You have to gain it through grit and going through and dealing with complex problems and not getting frustrated, but also dealing with them. But one of the things that I did specifically was, like, you know, I made a goal and was just like, I need to get a degree. I hated school. I think school is easy. They give you all the answers. Here's the books. Here's the answers. You just got to be able to memorize them and put it on display to whoever's teaching you. So I gained my degree. I began to start reading books on finances, and luckily I have a circle of veterans who I talk to who own businesses. I want to own a business. I'm pursuing and opening up a business soon as I get out. But having those resources of veterans, and not just veterans, and I think our comfort zone as veterans is other veterans, because they have shared hardships with some similarities that we went through once we were in service. But having the courage to go outside of your comfort zone and interact with people who have no, who have never been into the service. So, I over the last year or two, I've made it my point to get out there and talk to other people who don't have any experience in the military. I got friends now in the health sector. I got friends now in the finance sector, and I search for commonality through other things. But it's purposely built relationships. But also, like, I have an outgoing personality. You put me in, the middle of a random city, I'll make friends with anyone. And friends is a lightly used word, but again, because of my experience, to me, a real friend, and I ask this to a lot of people, like, what do you consider a friend? Oh, a friend is this. I'm like, all right, well, if you can't trust them around your significant other, money, or your kids, then I wouldn't call them your friend. So I've built relationships with people that I can trust and in different sectors that are not in the military. So building good connections, making sure that I'm on the right path, attaining the right education, and then building specific skills to whatever sector that I want to get into has dramatically reduced the anxiety of, am I going to be successful when I get out? I still have to have that same drive and solving problems and dealing with adversity outside. Because if I've done it for the last 23 years, then I can do it once I get out. But also, I think all veterans need to understand that as you get out, like, the phone calls start to stop, the text messages stop, all the things that associate you with the Marine Corps, you start to see, and it's scary. But at the same time, like, it's also a new chapter of your life that you got to fully embrace and open up. You have to venture out and start talking to people that have nothing to do with the military, because there's a whole world of people out there. And for a long time, like, I didn't think a lot of people were good people, and I didn't think people could measure up to what I would consider as a friend. But at the same time, like, if you don't start the conversation and you're able to talk to them, you're never going to get anywhere. So the plan is to, I want to open up a jiu-jitsu gym in Texas. One thing I love about jiu-jitsu is the ability to meet people from all walks of life. I think it's absolutely great. Everyone is in there for one purpose. Well, actually a few purposes, whether they're coming in there to, and they need an outlet from their daily grind, or they just want to meet different people. I think it's great. I've became friends with a 15-year-old kid and then a 70-year-old guy who's retired and owns a few businesses. But our commonality is we like jiu-jitsu. I get on the mat, we talk to them. Sometimes the 15-year-old kid is asking me for life advice, and then in kind, I'm asking the 70-year-old for life advice. So it's an endless cycle of your interaction with good people. So it's been great for me, great for mental health. I still stay in shape, but Texas is going to be home. So I'm looking forward to it. They can follow me on social media. It's open, but they'll start seeing more once everything gets going.
Well, it's been a pleasure to sit with you, Shawn.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Semper Fi, man.